Thank you very much, Adam. Would you like to move on to the next slide for me? Thanks.
I was going to say, sorry, Nicky, sorry to cut over. Guys, I can see there's a couple of questions been posted on there for Adam. So if we go through Nicky's first, and then we'll cover the questions all at the end, so that you know we will cover them off.
Thank you, Jane. So morning, everybody. I'm Nicky Silver from Nicky Silver HR Services, as Jane has mentioned, and also Adam. I've been working in HR for over 17 years, but I just need to add that I'm obviously a lot younger than Adam is. I've worked in corporate businesses, FTSE 100 companies, family businesses as well, so had a variety of experience in a variety of areas with a variety of businesses. But for the last couple of years, I've been self-employed, supporting SMEs across the East Midlands with their HR and people issues. I have to say, most of the time I get all of the rubbish jobs, so things like dealing with sickness cases, disciplinaries, grievances, sacking staff, redundancies, etc. But at the moment, a lot of the stuff I'm being asked about relates to furlough, staff refusing to return to work with a variety of excuses, and now also in the last couple of days, a lot about holidays and the quarantine and how that's going to impact businesses as well. So it's the furlough, staff returning to work and holidays that I'll be covering in my slides. But despite getting all the rubbish jobs, there is a good side to my work, I should say. Job satisfaction really comes from getting to know businesses, the business owners, and helping them to support the staff, especially through difficult times such as redundancies and other sort of unfortunate circumstances that happen from time to time. So there is a good side to the job as well. Can I move to the next slide, please, Adam? So last Friday, I'm sure you will have all seen over the news that there was an announcement regarding the furlough scheme and the fact that it is being updated from the 1st of July. And I just wanted to point out a few of the key dates that people need to be bearing in mind if they have got staff on furlough or they think they might still need to put some staff onto furlough. So 10th of June, this is the absolute last date that you can put somebody onto furlough if they've not previously been on the scheme. This is because as the scheme changes on the 1st of July, if you haven't had somebody on furlough for at least 3 weeks prior to the end of June, they can't go onto the new scheme after the 1st of July. So if you've got somebody who you think you might need to furlough in the future, they absolutely need to be furloughed by the 10th of June for at least 3 weeks to join the new scheme. Now, the update that came out on Friday was fairly high level. So 12th of June, we're expecting further guidance and more details about how the scheme's going to work and how we go about claiming. And then, as I said, 30th of June is when the scheme is going to close to any new claims at all. As of the 1st of July, you'll be allowed to return your employees to work, whether that's full-time or on a part-time basis, although they can still stay on furlough for the whole week or whole month as they do at the moment. In July, you'll still be able to claim 80% of their wages and still be able to claim national insurance and minimum pension contributions where eligible to do so. But if you've still got any claims under the previous scheme, the scheme as it is now, shall we say, they must all have gone through by the 31st of July. From the 1st of August through to the end of October, there will be, this is when the scheme payments start to change a little bit. So during August, you'll still be able to claim 80% of your employees' wages, but you'll no longer be able to claim back national insurance and minimum pension contributions. Then during September, you'll be able to claim 10% of your employees' wages from HMRC, but you will be required as a business to top that up by 10%. And then during October, HMRC, you'll be able to claim 60% of wages, topping that up by 20% from the business funds. And as they've announced, 31st of October is the date that the scheme is going to close completely. Can I move on to the next slide, please, Adam? So just a few important things that I wanted to mention at this stage, but as I said, 12th of June, there'll be more detailed guidance coming out. So to be eligible for the grant, you must agree with your staff that they are going to be furloughed, and those arrangements should be confirmed in writing. You should have been doing that anyway with anybody on furlough at the moment, but they've stipulated that definitely as part of the new scheme. You'll be able to claim under the new scheme from the 1st of July. And as I said previously, you can keep your employees on furlough without them returning to work at all. So that will still continue until the end of October, but there will be employer contributions during September and October towards the furlough payments. And as before, if you're feeling generous, you can still top your furlough payments up to the 100% for your employees. When making a claim, so under the new scheme, when making a claim, you're going to need to report any hours that your employee has worked and the usual hours that they would normally be expected to work. Obviously, you'll be needing to pay for any hours that they work themselves, and then any hours that they are not required to work, you will claim under the furlough scheme. And also from the 1st of July, the claim period will be 1 week minimum. So under the current scheme, people have to be furloughed for at least 3 weeks. But as of 1st of July, the new scheme will be a minimum of 1 week. Also, just worth pointing out that you won't be able to overlap your claims across calendar months. So if you've got somebody on furlough in August, you will need to put your claim through for August. And then if they're on furlough again at any stage in September, you'll need to put a separate claim through during September, because the scheme terms are changing each month from August onwards. Thanks, Adam. So, preparing to return to work. Obviously, a big part of returning to work is making sure that the workplace is safe, which Adam has already gone through. But there are other things, as Adam said, it's not a one-size-fits-all. However you plan to return to work will really be dependent on your business, and you're going to need to consider the shorter-term and longer-term requirements. Think about what work needs to be done, when it's going to need to be done by, etc. But also, I just say, bear in mind, be prepared to be flexible and adjust your plans as you go along, because we don't know what's around the corner. We don't know if we'll end up going into another lockdown or if anything's going to change. And as Adam also said on his slides, it's really important to communicate with your staff. So make sure you're open and honest and give them as much information as you can as you go along. I think employees are going to be more inclined to raise a grievance if they feel they haven't been treated fairly. So the more information you can give them about the situation the business is in and why you're doing things the way you're doing them, I think will go a long way to keeping your employees on side. So make sure you keep everybody updated on any plans, and especially the safeguarding measures that you're putting in place. And obviously give people as much notice as you can about any changes that might affect them. So if you're expecting them to come back to work at some point, give them as much notice as you can. Obviously people are enjoying being off on furlough at the moment, or some people are, and to find out that you suddenly need them back at work tomorrow might come as a bit of a shock to the system. So you also need to think about who you're going to need to return to work. Do all of your staff need to come back, or are you going to have to look at it on a phased basis? So if you're looking at it on a phased basis, think about things in a very, very objective way. So use a list of criteria to assess who's going to come back. Things like who's got the right skills to do the job, what experience people have got. You might want to think about attendance records, qualifications, attitude to work, etc. But that could be critical to any claims in the future. If an employee feels they haven't been treated fairly, if you can demonstrate you've used an objective list of criteria to decide who's going to come back first, then that will be your evidence towards your case. But you might also want to consider who your critical workers are. Who do you really want to retain in the business? So make sure you bring them back first. You might have staff who've been told to shield for 12 weeks, and some of those have also been told to continue shielding, so they might not be able to come back. And also think about whether your staff might need new skills when they return. Obviously, there'll be some new health and safety processes in place. Do they need training in how to use technology such as Zoom? And there could be other skills that people need as well going forward. So while they're on furlough, you can ask your staff to complete training, which is a great way of helping prepare them to come back to work. Also, Adam's going to cover mental health and anxiety, etc. at the end of the session, but some employees may be feeling stressed or anxious about returning to work because they've been at home for quite a long time. So make sure they've got access to mental health and wellbeing support, as well as you might want to consider whether you need somebody training in mental health first aid as well. But whatever you're doing, make sure you write to your employees to confirm when they'll be coming off furlough and returning to work, and whether that's full-time or part-time. Everything needs to be in writing, and make sure all of your decisions are documented, and keep your records for 6 years in case you get a dispute with an employee, or in case HMRC wants to audit how you've approached the furlough claims. Just a couple of extra things on the end of there. If there isn't enough work for some people to return, obviously your options are to keep them on furlough, move them onto the flexible furlough scheme. You could also consider laying staff off if your contracts allow you to do that, but that gets a little bit complicated. And I guess the final option, if you feel there isn't going to be any work for some of your staff going forward, you can look at redundancies. Again, but think about keeping them on furlough as long as you can, though, because of the circumstances we're in at the moment and the opportunities, I guess, available to somebody to find a new job at this current time. Thanks, Adam. So this is one of the big questions I'm getting at the moment. Staff are refusing to come back to work. All sorts of reasons for this. All I would say is make sure you're being fair and reasonable. Obviously, if your health and safety procedures and processes are not in place and it's not safe for your staff to come back to work, then they've got a really good reason not to return. So as Adam's gone through, make sure your health and safety commitments are met and nobody is put in any danger. But also bear in mind that you might have some staff who are concerned about using public transport to get back to work. They might have childcare issues because the schools are closed, or they may have suffered a bereavement. So there could be all sorts of reasons for people feeling like they don't want to come back to work. But basically, if an employee has not been advised by the government or a medical practitioner to stay at home, then you can expect them to return. Speak to your staff individually to understand what it is that's actually stopping them from coming back, but also explain the position that the business is in, again being open and honest, and why you need them to return. And also ask them what you can do to help them feel able to return, and look for solutions that, that would work for both parties. You could also think about offering on a temporary measure, I suppose, offering holiday or additional unpaid leave, but again, confirm anything like that in writing. But just a few things, if somebody's got childcare issues, you could ask if they could work different hours around caring for the children. Can they work from home? Could they be redeployed to a job that enables them to work from home? Somebody who's shielding, they don't have to shield themselves, but they do need to follow social distancing guidelines. So can you give them some work away from others in the workplace just to make them feel more secure? If people are using public transport, you could offer staggered start times, come in a bit later or a bit earlier, and leave a bit later, leave a bit earlier. But there's also some guidelines on using public transport that I'll provide the link to after this, so that can be covered. But if you feel that somebody hasn't got a valid reason for returning, then ask them to confirm the reasons in writing so that you can provide a formal response. And during that time, depending on the situation, you could temporarily suspend their pay while you investigate and review the situation. You could again offer a period of holiday or unpaid leave while you get it sorted out. Offer them a visit to the workplace so they could see what safeguarding measures you've got in place. Or you could even say, do they actually still want to work for the company? But as a last resort, the option would be to start the disciplinary process for failure to follow a reasonable instruction, and that reasonable instruction being it's time to return to work. But obviously seek some advice on that if you need to. Next slide, please, Adam. I think this is my last slide. So holidays has been a big question over the last few weeks. So if somebody's on furlough, then their holiday continues to accrue as it has done previously. But a lot of businesses are going to find themselves with a bit of a backlog of people coming back to work, and they've suddenly accrued a lot of holiday that they haven't taken. So as an employer, you can tell your staff when to take holidays, as long as you give them twice the amount of notice for the amount of time being taken off. So I've put an example. So if you want somebody to take a week's holiday, you need to give them 2 weeks notice. Obviously, you don't want everybody trying to take holiday in the last 6 months of the year. If people do take holiday, then you need to pay them at 100% of their salary for any days that they do take. So at the moment, that'd be topping the 80% furlough payment up by 20% if they're still on furlough. And obviously, those amounts will change in the coming months as how much you'll need to top up. I've had quite a few questions as well about whether the staff can carry over 4 weeks of leave for up to 2 years, because that's been in the news quite a lot. But that is literally for key industries and key workers, healthcare workers, etc. And only if those people have not been able to take the time off during the holiday year. A couple of things to mention around holiday policies though. So I think it's really important this time to make sure your holiday policy is updated and that you share it with staff, because what are you going to do if somebody has already got a holiday booked and then it's cancelled by the holiday operator at the last minute? Do you want them to come to work, or would you prefer them to still take the holiday? Somebody may be told to self-isolate and then can't go on holiday. So in that situation, you pay statutory sick pay, or they can still take the holiday. This again is up to you in your policy. But then there's a big question as of Monday. I think Monday's the 8th of June, people returning from abroad are going to need to quarantine for 14 days. So what are you going to do in those circumstances? That needs to be really laid out to people. So you can consider whether people will still need to take annual leave for those extra 2 weeks, sorry. Obviously, you don't have to pay them their pay, but they will be entitled to statutory sick pay. So you need to think about those 14 days in quarantine, how you're going to deal with it. The thing is, you can't stop them from going on holiday abroad. What people do in their own time is their own business. But you can point out to them the risks of taking that holiday, and they can take it from there. Government guidelines obviously still say that travel is only for essential travel at the moment. So they could potentially be breaking government rules if they do go abroad. But I would suggest you identify which employees have got holidays booked or are thinking of taking a holiday abroad in the next few months. Make it clear to them that you've got no obligation to pay them, that they will be on statutory sick pay when they come back. But the other thing is, can you actually accommodate them potentially being off for 3 or 4 weeks in a row? So when they come back, is there an option for them to work from home, take unpaid leave? Can they swap with somebody else who's on furlough and take 3 weeks on furlough? Can they work additional hours to make those missed 2 weeks up? Yeah, quite a few options. But whatever, if people go into quarantine, paying them under the furlough scheme is not an option. They are only entitled to statutory sick pay. And that is the end of my slides. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you very much, Nicky. Okay, obviously we've only got a couple of very quick slides now just on the elephant in the room, mental health. As I said, because I think at the when we come through this pandemic and out to the other side, I think this is a key area that was already gathering a lot of momentum anyway and a lot of awareness across the globe. But I think that it's going to be amplified even more now because of what's going on and the personal and worldwide circumstances, what we've all been going through. Okay, so at the moment, obviously, there's a lot of people, as Nicky's alluded to, they're on furlough. They don't know what's going to happen with their jobs. There's a lot of uncertainty and fear out there at the minute. And if you speak to employees, they are all worried about their jobs. I communicate with my team regular, and that's some of the feedback that I get. We are concerned X, Y, and Z. But not only that, if you extend it, people are concerned about their own health, their own welfare, the welfare and health of their families. A lot of people have relatives, close family members, people that they love and care about who, tick some, if not all of the boxes for, the high risk category group for COVID-19 having a significant impact on them. And they're concerned, they might be shielding, but they might be the person who's going to look after them. And obviously Nicky's alluded to some of the human resources issues that can think. But yeah, people returning back to work, returning into an environment where they're potentially exposed to the disease, the virus, especially where you can't account for what other people within your circle are doing and who they're meeting with, etc. So there is a lot of fear and anxiety out there. And I think that, certainly for people who already have an existing condition, whether it be anxiety, depression, etc., I think that is really amplifying that condition. So I think the call on mental health services on the other side of this is going to be substantial. Obviously, workers, as I said, family members getting ill and dying, and again, as we talked about the financial situation, again, people are struggling. People are on 80% of their salaries. I know that initially the banks and loan companies and stuff gave mortgage holidays, etc., but that will come to an end, and people may still be on the furlough scheme for a bit longer after that. So, those people who already may struggle to make ends meet are going to be in a worse financial position. There's people who are shielding, and obviously people who maybe don't have people that, somebody that they live with, they don't have a partner, they lived on their own initially. People are feeling isolated, feeling that that loss of community as well, because I'm sure we've all experienced this. We've gone to the shops and somebody gets a bit too close to you and you automatically now start stepping away, don't you, moving back. So that one of those fundamental things that makes us that makes up our human DNA and how we are is that interaction and close connection and bond that we have with other human beings. And I think that at the moment, because of what's happened, we've got a bit of a disconnect of that. So obviously we need to find another way to manage this. And some people that will, especially if they're feeling isolated and lonely already, again, it's just going to amplify that sense of feeling, which again is going to have a knock-on effect in terms of their mental health and well-being. I suppose in terms of your employees, it's all about reassurance, really. It's, if we all don't have a crystal ball and we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we can do things to reassure our employees at the moment. Reassure them about the role in the company, if we can do, to try and alleviate any fears and uncertainty that they may have. As I said before, check in with people regular. You'd be very, very surprised just the power of a conversation, power of a phone call, because somebody might be feeling anxious, they might be feeling a little lost and alone. And just if somebody, picks up the phone and gives them a call and just that 5-minute chat, even a text message or something, just some communication so they know that people are there and they care. And obviously there are always support from professional services who can, give really good advice. And there's a few of them on the slide there: Mind Every Mind Matters, Heads Together, Mental Health First Aid England, etc. This may, as Nicky kind of alluded to as well, be an opportunity for you to start thinking about, do I want, as an employer, as a responsible employer, responsible manager, look to have some of my team trained in mental health first aid. So although they're not a counselling service, at least they have a way of identifying potential problems, and they also have that toolkit of resources where they can point people in the right direction to get some help. And I think at this moment in time, it's all about our corporate responsibility to our employees. You know, it's about making sure, you know, we talk a lot about health and safety, but the biggest part of that doesn't really get mentioned is health. You know, and then in terms of the occupational health, we talk quite a bit about that, but mental health is really key. As I said, there's a lot of momentum already over the last 2 years in terms of mental health, and the awareness has been raised, and there's been a lot of campaigns, but I think we just really need to step that up once we come out of the other side of this pandemic, and once we start bringing people back to work. And even now, you know, I'm sure there may be employees that you have that are sat at home in crisis at this moment in time, and although you may think they might be all right, ask yourself the question, are they? And how can I help them? You know, as I say, even if the longer term plan for that employee might be quite detrimental, there's things we can do now to help them, you know, which is going to make soften some of those things that may happen in the future. Okay, so again, mental health, a real key thing, and a key element that as employers, as human beings, I think we've all got a moral duty to really look after the health and well-being of everybody that's around us and those people that we work in close contact with. Okay, well, I think that's it from the slide. So I'm going to hand over, and we'll go through and go through the questions.
Excellent, thanks, Guy. Adam, Nicky. You know, it is a minefield, I think, with this, and it's certainly something that we've never come across before. So this is very new territory. I think the things I was definitely picking up from there is communicate most definitely. Both on a group and individually, and find out, you know, what individual issues there are for individuals, but also this making sure everything is recorded, because, and again, this is protecting, you know, people as employees, but it's protecting individuals as well. So yeah, absolutely, very good information, guys. So let's have a look at what we've got in the chat box. So